Welcome to the Northeast Kingdom Voice. I'm your host, Scott Wheeler. Everybody needs a friend, and today's guest is Wendy Hilliard, the Executive Director of the OCCA.
That's right. Orleans County Citizen Advocacy.
Well, I'm glad you could say that. So is that what you do? You help form friendships?
Orleans County Citizen Advocacy was established in 1988 on a federal, initiative by Wolf Wolfsenberger, where he felt that there were individuals who were falling between the cracks, and that friendship and companionship was an important part of well-being. Mm-hmm. And so there was a national initiative, and there were citizen advocacy groups that were federally funded throughout the country. Mm-hmm. And we had two very wonderful individuals, Connie Daigle and Joan Alexander, who felt that our community needed one as well.
Right.
Unfortunately, by the time they submitted their application for an OC or for a citizen advocacy group, the federal dollars had pretty much dried up. Mm-hmm. So they began the organization with a $1,000 grant from the federal government, and they have been continuing. We have been continuing that program for the past 24 and a half years.
Right. So you're nearing your 25th milestone.
We are in our 25th year, celebrating our quarter of a century, and we're really excited about it. Citizen advocacy is designed to match up community individuals with developmental disabilities, and we really kind of facilitate a friendship. It's not, although we call those folks advocates, it's not an advocate type of a situation. There's no legal obligation. There's no caregiving or personal care support for that. It's basically friendship. It's matching people up with that have similar interests, so that those folks with developmental disabilities have an opportunity for socialization and for friendship and to be a part of our community.
And the people involved in this, the advocates, they don't get paid anything, correct?
That's correct. It is all voluntary. They're just individuals who understand the benefits of friendship, and a lot of our advocates believe that they earn or gain as much from the relationship as the partner does, in the partner obviously getting an opportunity to socialize and be a part of our community. Our advocates believe that they get just as much, if not more, out of the relationship.
And because in a real friend relationship, you don't get paid. I have some friends who would like to get paid just to be friends with me.
That's right. That's right.
How long has the longest advocate?
We actually have an advocate partner match that has been going on since 1988. It's a woman and a gentleman who have been friends for over 25 years. And they're still together, and they still communicate often. And we have another match that just started with a young woman and a gentleman whose common interest is music. And so they're getting together and they're playing their music together, and they're going to venues where music is being played, and so they're enjoying that connection. We have another partnership that the young lady that is the partner enjoys going out and having lunch, and so her advocate every couple of weeks, they get together, they go out and have lunch at Wendy's or another one of our restaurants in the community. It's an opportunity for folks with developmental disabilities to have socialization, to be a part of our community. As you know, Scott, there's so many wonderful organizations in our community serving those in need. But we believe that there's a difference between being paid to spend time with someone and genuinely just enjoying that time together. And that's what we are able to facilitate and bring into the community.
So how many advocates do you have now?
We are currently supporting 25 matches. Over the 25 years that the organization has been in service, we've matched up almost 100 individuals. Again, those friendships last a lifetime, or as a lot of friendships do, they sometimes can fade away. People can move, people's interests change, or their life expectancy, the obligations in their lives change. And so those friendships can sort of fade and that kind of thing, but we're there as a support to give them what support that they need in order to help that continue.
You know what I think of when I hear your program? It's the Echo Lake road race, because when my boys lived here, they used to run it, and for some reason that event is etched in my mind. Is that your big fundraiser?
We have 4 big fundraisers. Actually, we've had 2 very large fundraisers in the past, and we're planning for 4 for this year. But yes, the Echo Lake Road Race, which is held at Echo Lake in Charleston,
Right.
has been going on for 25 years. It's actually going to have its 25th event this year. It's a wonderful opportunity to enjoy the absolutely gorgeous lake, and folks will ride their bikes, or they run, or they walk around the perimeter of Echo Lake. And it is one of our biggest fundraisers. The other one is held in September, and that's the Northeast Kingdom Lakes Century Bike Tour.
Okay, yeah.
And that is an opportunity for cyclists to do 25, 50, 75, or 100 miles on their bikes. And that is another one of our major events. Unfortunately, having it so late in September, sometimes the weather is an issue for us. This past year,
Now, do you do the
it was
25
cold.
or 100 miles?
No, I get to say that I have to be on site to help, coordinate things. So no, I don't get on the bike, but maybe one of these days.
Right. So are you looking for volunteers?
We would love to have people volunteer to support our organization, and there are a number of ways that people can do that. Obviously, they can apply to and want to become an advocate. We do background checks on that and that kind of thing. And we try to match partners with advocates who have similar interests. So sometimes we will get an advocate who will contact us and say, I'd like to be an advocate. It may take us a little time to find the right match. And in some cases, it's the opposite way. We'll have someone who's been referred for an advocate, and it'll take us a little time to find someone to have similar interests and make sure that this friendship is going to work. We also have volunteers who can support us through our fundraising activities if they'd like to volunteer to assist in that manner. We are always interested in having people serve on our board of directors,
Right.
and so if someone would be interested in that, they can always contact us.
And what is the requirements of being an advocate?
Again, there's really no set requirements. Obviously, as I said, it has to be somebody who's genuinely interested in the relationship. There have to be really no personal agenda for the advocate. We do ask them to submit to a background check to make sure that there's nothing in their history that might be of concern. But really, it's just offering friendship to someone with developmental disabilities. When I meet a person, or when you meet someone, we don't sit down and say, okay, what are you going to give me? What are going to be the parameters
Right.
of our relationship? It's based on mutual interest. It's based on mutual connection, and we don't dictate what that will be. Sometimes in the life of a partner, there might be the need for some advocacy. There might be the need for some support through medical situations, perhaps legal situations, and they can offer that support. But it's more just an opportunity to have someone who genuinely cares about the partner, who's not being paid to be there, who has similar interests, and who's willing to take them into the community and help them be a part of our community.
Now, if I recall right from a newspaper article, you've actually really survived, your group has really survived the test of time compared to other groups that do the same thing.
We certainly have. We are actually only one of 2 citizen advocacy groups that are left in the state of Vermont. When that initiative began in 1987 and 1988, there were about 24 citizen advocacy groups that popped up within the state of Vermont. And they opened offices and they had staff, and it was quite a big thing. But because that funding source from the federal government has dried up, those organizations had struggled, or they merged into other organizations. They merged and became a part of another organization within their community. Franklin County also has a citizen advocacy group that is struggling, like we do, to stay going.
So what's your secret? Or your group's secret?
Our group's secret is an incredibly committed and active board of directors. I am privileged to work with this group of individuals. Ellen Bowen, who was the program director prior to my taking on the position, spent 9 years of just committing herself to this organization. We have both of the original founders who are still involved in assisting with fundraising activities.
That's Joan and Connie?
Joan and Connie are still very, very involved in it. It delights me in knowing that once people become involved with citizen advocacy, they stay involved. whether it be through being advocates themselves, serving on our board of directors, volunteering to work at our fundraising activities. They're marvelous. They're just wonderful.
So do you have any state or federal funding now?
We've never had any federal or state funding. Mm-hmm. We, one of our biggest things, and when I do my pitch out to everybody who's watching, one of our biggest things is making sure that we have the finances to sustain our organization. There is no billing source, there's no funding source for our organization. Because we're actually offering a friendship, how do you pay for or how do you bill for friendship? Right. And so we don't have that opportunity. Our finances are obtained through our town appropriation requests, which all of the towns within Orleans County have been very generous in supporting for us every year. We have our fundraising activities that occur, and then just the donations and support of the folks in the community who believe in what we're doing and want to be a part of it. We recently, for the first time in 25 years, we got an office. And we are now no longer working out of the homes of the folks that work for the organization. And our office is on Seymour Lane. And in transferring all of the documentation...
Seymour Lane in Newport.
In Newport, right. The old clinic building is what I've been told it's called. Again, that was before my time here in Newport. But the old clinic building... I
believe it's where I used to go to the dentist.
My husband says the same thing. That's where the doctors were.
Right.
But we have an office in there now. And when we were transferring and moving all of our stuff to the new office, I found this letter from 1986. And it was actually a letter that was written to another citizen advocacy group. But when I read the letter, it touched me so much because here in 2012, when I found the letter, it was still so relevant. And the letter was from a person who sent 12 checks, and they were written out for each month of the year. And the person said that their family felt committed to supporting citizen advocacy because we were losing neighborliness in the area that they were coming from. And I felt that it was so relevant even in 2012. Right. With the economy the way it's been, with people struggling to find jobs and struggling to find jobs that are well-paying, for the disasters that we've encountered in the state of Vermont, and so the financial support that's been sent that way. Citizen advocacy allows people to be friends and be neighbors to their neighbors. It really is so relevant that we continue to look beyond our own struggles and our own issues and know that there are folks out there who just need someone to help them, to be their friend and to support them through their lives.
And I think you'll probably agree, there's even beyond your group, there's a lot of people who already do it because, like, I think back in time, growing up in the area, a lot of us have helped people, but we didn't call it helping. We just, it's like, for example, way back, I've heard stories of my grandmother and her old friends taking a couple, one fella off the street who had some, issues, and every week or two they would bring him in, shower him, get him dressed back up, and send him back Absolutely. Out on his way. And I look back over time, and like there was one fella named Wayne who he was always around. He'd had some injuries when he was a kid, and he was able to survive in the community because of the generosity of people. Or like I would pick him up, give him a ride, and the first thing he would say to me, "Do you mind if I smoke?" And I would do the same thing. I'd say, "Are you on fire?" And he'd laugh. But I think I think this area has historically been really good about helping people, but they didn't really call it helping. It was just, just doing what...
It was neighborliness. Right. It was looking out for your neighbors. And I agree with you wholeheartedly, Scott. I don't think that we're doing anything within our organization that right. others aren't doing on a daily basis. What we do is we provide an opportunity. There may be chances where someone in our community doesn't have an opportunity to right. meet someone who might need their assistance. Or it might be that somebody with someone with a developmental disability doesn't have the capability or the opportunity to meet others who might have similar interests. And so what we do is we sort of say, okay, we can help bring those two together. You know, we're the dating site of Orleans County for friendships. But we have that opportunity to say, these are the folks that need us, and these are the folks who are interested in meeting someone who they might be friends with and be able to assist. And so it's funny because I think that there are so many wonderful organizations in our community that support folks with needs in our community. I don't think we don't compete with them. Right. We don't offer something that is better than or more important than. We offer something that's different than. It's an opportunity for folks in our community to meet others who have special needs, who have special situations that they might need assistance with, and to be able to match them up. Right. And again, facilitating and supporting friendships that we hope will last a lifetime.
And I think, even though I talk glowingly about the past, and I think a lot of that's alive and well today, I do think the faster paced we become, granted, even, we might be moving at a fast pace now compared to before, we're still operating at a snail's pace compared to other
parts of the state.
But still,
sure.
Though, I think sometimes, there are people who are left out of those relationships, and I think sometimes the different groups are becoming more polarized. They're living in their own worlds where they might not connect.
I also believe that with the economy the way it is, with states struggling to fund different organizations, I think that a lot of the payment for some of these services within our community are going to be cut back. Right. People aren't going to have the dollars that they have to be able to offer services, paid services to people within our community. Mm-hmm. And our concern sometimes is that those folks that are on that cusp who might be eligible for services now, but as those funding sources dry up, they might no longer be eligible for those services. We're hoping to be able to pick up that portion, being able to offer somebody in the community who is interested, who is concerned, who will watch out for those individuals. So we do believe that we've been going along for 25 years. We've talked about whether or not we're still viable, whether or not we're still needed in our community. And we believe we are, and we believe that we will get even more important and more needed in the community as funding sources are shifted around, and when organizations within our community who are paid for those types of services may no longer be able to offer them.
Oh, I agree, because I do see in the future, the fact of the matter is there's not an endless supply of money. And now, I don't know if you knew the late Jim Irwin or
Absolutely.
or the current George Coulter. They both came here with another group of people in the 1960s. They came here from Iowa for a mission to bring mental health care to rural Vermont. And I know that isn't what you do, but they were they've told me about how things were, and they talked about that community care and relationship that we do have, but then they also talk about, many other aspects of life here that was not so glamorous. And I can't help but believe that they would be, or they are, in George's case, appreciative of what you're doing.
We work very closely with organizations within the community that also serve those with developmental
Right.
disabilities. And we have a very good working relationship with them. And I think it's important, number one, it's interesting because when I became the executive director in March of 2012, one of the things that was very glaring to me was the fact that a lot of people in our community didn't know who we were and didn't know what we did. Because we're not a part of Northeast Kingdom Human Services, right, or a part of the VNA or a part of NECA, those are organizations that people are very familiar with. We weren't a part of that. We weren't under their umbrella. And so I think that people weren't quite sure who we were and what we did. I remember going to the Derby town meeting last March, and as right after I had gotten the position, and going to the Derby town meeting. And when our appropriation request came up on the warning, this woman stood up and said, "Who are they? What do they do?" And I was all ready to stand up and defend our position and tell everybody who we were. And Eric Grims from Northeast Kingdom Human Services very eloquently got up and explained who we were, what we had done, what we were in the community, and so it was very touching for me because the organizations in the community that serve the same people that we serve know who we are. It's getting the rest of the community to know that as well.
From being a lifelong resident of the area, and I actually worked at mental health for, I think, 10 years. I have my degree in psych, but it really wasn't until I served in legislature that I actually had to try to figure out who was who with these groups, because I served on the healthcare committee, and I wanted a better understanding. Okay, what does NECA do? What does your group do? Because there's so many groups out there, and I think it's great that you reached out to me to come on to the show, because I think sometimes in your field or the mental health field or NECA, they've actually got to self-advocate for themselves, so to educate people to what they are doing, because, especially come town meeting time, that's when you have to, stand there and explain why you deserve that money. And if they only hear from you at that time, taxpayers are not often as willing to help out.
Absolutely. When they think, and I think the other side to that is that if they have the misconception that we are federally funded or we're state funded, they're getting dollars from someone else. Why are they coming to us? A lot of, and I don't speak to anybody's organization, but a lot of organizations have dollars where they are required to do matching dollars, and that's where town appropriations can come in. But a lot of folks don't know that about us. That the reason that we go to towns and ask towns to help support our organization is because we don't have any federal or state dollars coming into our coffers. I have, and I won't mention who it is because I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I have spoken with some of our local House representatives to say, is there any money in the in the state budget that we might be able to capture into and tap into? Because, again, relying solely on the generosity of our communities in this day and age can sometimes be very difficult. I'd love to find some, big benefactor who would write us a lovely little check and say, here you go, this will help you get through another year.
And I think one thing that you have going for you, or your group does, is you don't work out of a building with ivory towers and everything, because I think that's a harder sell sometimes, is like, okay, how much money is going to the people versus the structure in that. And I understand having to have a livable office space, but I think some people they see, if they see too much in the way of structure.
I think you're right. I think that if you are asking the towns for money, or you're asking individuals or businesses in our community to support or sponsor events that you're holding, if you're sitting in this luxurious office space or something like that, then people kind of want to know where the money is going to. We were very, very fortunate, and I'll say his name on the television. Roy Stewie donated our furniture to the organization. Pine Computers was generous in giving us a computer. So we've been very frugal in not only putting all the furniture in our organization, but really finding a place that was reasonable. But the thing about it is that for the past 24 years, we've worked out of the homes of the folks who volunteered or were paid to work for the organization. And I believe that sometimes what we felt, and the reason for really going to find an office space, is that there's some sort of a foundation, there's some sort of a professional validation when you have a location in the community that people can see and go to and realize that in fact you are working and you are doing something.
Oh, and the joys of work, because I have worked out of my house for the last 20 years, and that requires discipline too.
Oh, absolutely.
But the thing is it requires discipline in two directions. Is discipline that you do the work you're supposed to do, but discipline that you don't do more than you should be doing. And so I think, because I've thought about myself getting the office space like you've done, but in my case, I've decided to stick from home. But in your case, I totally understand. Because it really does add that, yes, we are a true organization, but no, we don't have those ivory towers. So, and I don't think anybody minds that.
We hope not. One of the fears that we've had in this past year was the fact that how will people view that? How will people see that? But if we're going to be trying to tap into foundations within the state of Vermont, or trying to entice or engage someone who has some money to be able to help support us, we have to show that not only are we a presence in the community, but we feel that by committing to this office space, we are showing that we are committed to continuing in the community as well.
No, I totally agree. I think in your case, that's a great thing. It was a great move that you've done. Oh, you talked about Roy Stewie, just for the, for those of us who had kids go through the Derby Elementary School system, that wasn't Roy Stewie. It was Mr. Roy.
Oh, okay.
And just to the viewers, Mr. Roy is a first or second grade teacher, and we only knew him as Mr. Roy. I guess maybe because maybe Stewie was a little too hard for the children.
Right, and the way that it's spelled, it might be a little difficult to know how to read it, but. Right. He was very generous in giving us this furniture.
He was a great element. Well, I assume he's still there, and I assume he's still a great teacher. But it doesn't surprise me he helped out.
He did, and the community has been incredibly generous. Businesses in our community who sponsor our fundraising activities. We talked about the Echo Lake Road Race, which we are planning again this year, the Century Bike Tour, which we are planning again this year. But I'd also like to mention that even sooner than that, we are going to be a part of the Winter Carnival for City Parks and Recreation Department on February 2nd. I invite all of you to join us for our Golf on Ice Winter Challenge. This will be the third year, and we do an 18-hole golf course for those folks who just can't stand that winter's here right now and they can't play golf. And it's a wonderful opportunity for us to raise some funds because, again, people are so generous, but we need to keep that money coming in for us. And if you're interested, you can always contact our office and we can get you the information.
Okay, with only about 2 more minutes left, is how can somebody contact you?
We have our new offices on Seymour Lane. We have a telephone number, and I would be happy to put it out. It's 624-0877. They can also email us at whilliard@occa-vt.org. We're on Facebook, so I would love people to like us on Facebook. And so we're really trying to get out there and give people a number of ways to get in touch with us to find out how they can support us, help us, or volunteer.
Right. And if somebody wants to be a volunteer and they say, well, geez, I'm too old. Are you ever too old to help somebody?
I don't know. Friends? Do you have any older friends?
Let me put it this way. You're asking the wrong person. Is some of my very good friends are like Joe Queenan. Joe is 89 years old. I consider him one of my best friends because of the fact that I write history.
Absolutely. And anybody who has history. Again, friendship is based on a number of things, and there are interests, and there are folks out there who have an interest in history. There are folks out there who have an interest in what elderly people can bring to a relationship. I don't think you're ever too old to be an advocate for our organization. We do have some sort of restrictions on the opposite spectrum of people perhaps being too young, because again, you would have to have a sort of level of maturity in order to deal with someone with a developmental disability. But we encourage young people, high school members, to get involved as well. It's a great way to start a relationship that could last a lifetime and to get over the fear or the sort of unknown of folks with developmental disabilities. I have met some incredible people who are our partners in our organization who are just amazing individuals. And because of one or two disabilities that cause the label of a developmental disability, they don't have the opportunity and the chance to get out and meet people in the community.
Well, you mentioned high school. Now granted, this isn't the way to handle it, but there's some real good. I know that everybody paints young people as all bad. There's so many good high school people who are strong advocates for people who are in need. Now, granted, they don't always express it the right way. Like, there has been fist fights, knockdown, drag-out fist fights at North Country High School because there's been kids who saw another kid picking on somebody with a disability. And, you know, I'm sure you don't advocate fist fights, but on the other hand is their intentions were well. As,
Absolutely.
Hey, you know, what are you doing?
Absolutely. And we believe that being in befriending someone with developmental disabilities, not only can we better educate the community about how those folks deal with life every day and the things that the struggles and the challenges that they face, but we also broaden that knowledge by folks that don't have that, the opportunity for their lives to be enriched. We really believe that that's part of what we do, is enriching the lives of everybody who is involved in our organization, whether it's board members or volunteers who are at the fundraising activities. Our partners and our advocates come to those activities and they get an opportunity to meet the folks that we're serving in the community. And it's an honor and a privilege to work for them.
So I commend you for all the work you do, and I think it's great work. And I commend your organization and all the volunteers for doing what they're doing.
Well, thank you, Scott, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to be on your show so that your viewers can get an idea about who we are and what we do.
And thank you to the viewers for tuning in to another segment of the Northeast Kingdom Voice.